I'll remember this and I'll vote against you for the rest of your life. So they're actually, intensity runs counter to preference, and you can get people to say things on preference. Do you think there are too many immigrants? The United States has thought there are too many immigrants in the country since the Germans started sneaking in the 1760s, okay? There's always been, you know, oh, all the guys in my neighborhood who I know, they're perfect, and isn't it interesting that they come from all parts of the world? And by the way, my mom, you know, that's okay. But these new guys, I don't know about these new guys, okay? We've only been through this, you know, every second generation since the country, since before the country was founded. And it's had its ugly moments and it's had its funny moments. It's like hazing kids showing up at school or something. And we seem to go through it and we seem to survive it. But it'd be nice if we could shorten the period of being annoying to the new guys as they come in, and also recognize that the guys who just showed up are just like the guys that your mom went to school with. They just got here more recently. So you can always be 70%. When Pat Buchanan was running for president, he told me, Grover, 70% of the country's not really big on free trade with China. 70% of Republicans, 70% of Republicans think there are too many immigrants. I will run for president as the anti-free trade, anti-immigrant candidate, and I'll get 70% of the vote. And he got 1% of the vote. The question he didn't ask was, after, do you think there are too many immigrants? Yeah, probably too many immigrants. It doesn't cost anything to say something like that. You don't have to put a lot of thought into it, okay? Most don't. But, second question, do you vote on that issue? And the answer is no. And so it's very interesting to and watch. Don't get confused by preference versus intensity. This is how people lose elections. In every election, at the end of the day, there are two candidates, and they're both planning on winning. They both see all the issues before them, and they choose their issue set, and one wins and one loses. How does this happen, right? I mean, 50% lose of guys running, more if you count primaries. So somebody's not figuring out how issues actually play with voters. They're missing intensity versus preference. There's some issues people talk about, and there's some issues people vote on. Jumping ahead, some people say, well, here's what we'll do. We'll talk to Hispanic voters about all the issues that we agree with them on, or that they agree with us on, like life and traditional values and getting ahead in life and so on. And they won't mind if we're harsh on immigration. So we'll have a conversation, say, look, I want to talk to you about all the issues we agree on. Now, while we talk, you won't mind if Igor here goes upstairs and grabs your aunt and drags her down the stairs and throws her across the border. That won't get in the way of our having a lovely conversation about the importance of cutting the capital gains tax. Now, I might be distracted by conversation of capital gains tax, but most people would not, okay? And you can't ask for somebody's vote while either insulting or threatening them, their friends, and their neighbors. You can't even have the conversation that some people want. Intensity versus preference. Just understand, it's one thing for somebody to say, oh, I don't like immigrants. It's another thing to say, oh, this is a vote-winning issue. Really? It's got a history of losing elections. It is not a vote-moving issue. It is a vote-losing issue. And one needs to be very careful about throwing away too many congressional and legislative seats. We can't afford to do that, not here, anywhere else. In Canada, staying with the politics of this, the Canadian Conservative Party is up there. And it's not like previous Canadian Conservative parties, okay, which were Ted Kennedy. Okay, these guys have a corporate tax rate of 17.5% in Canada. We're 35, they're 17.5%, right? And they're the Canadians we used to make fun of because they were so left-wing and big government. They've been reducing the size of government. This is a real conservative party they've got up in Canada. They won in the last election cycle a majority of every immigrant group in the country. Everyone. Wasn't always what they did, but they went out and talked to everybody and met with them and spoke to them and listened to them and treated them with respect. and said, you came here because you wanted to get ahead, we're the party of getting ahead, and why don't you hang out with us instead of those left-wing twits that'll steal your money, okay? They carried a majority of all the things. I'm leaving with the chamber a very good, long study of exactly how that was done in Canada. And there's a great series of ads that one can see that they worked on. So again, on the politics, sometimes you run into somebody, oh, Grover, you're right and all that, but we'll never win those votes. Yes, you will, if you ask, if you try, if you work at it, if you deserve those votes, and if you're not threatening their cousins and their uncles and their aunts and their neighbors while you're trying to have a conversation with them. Well, what about rule of law? I think we should just enforce all the laws. Now, where were you in 1980s when this country had a 55-mile-an-hour speed limit? And I was working in the conservative movement, and I cannot remember a single conservative coming up to me and saying, you know, Grover, we have got a great deal of illegal driving going on in the United States. And before we have any, and I say, well, you know, the reason we have illegal driving is because we have a speed limit that's stupid, that Carter put in. Let's get 65, 75, these built for roads. I'm young enough to remember, old enough to remember 85-mile-an-hour speed limits in New Hampshire. The roads were built to be driven at 65, 75, 85, not 55. No, first we have to arrest and fine everybody who's been illegally driving in this country over the years. And then, and only then, would we have a conversation about changing the stupid speed limit, okay? We have a 55-mile-an-hour speed limit on immigration. We don't allow enough people into working farms. We don't allow enough high-tech people to come in. We don't have a speed limit that fits our highways, that fits our economic needs. And this is even with Obama's lousy economy. I mean, this was a bigger problem when the economy was growing faster. It'll be a bigger problem again when we get some adult leadership in the Senate and the White House and we turn the economy around. It's going to be a very big problem. And that's why one of the things that's changing on the politics of this is not only personalities like Sean Hannity, who's changed completely, or Lou Dobbs, who's completely done a 180 on this issue, but structurally the business community and the communities of faith, okay, are moving to a policy of Ronald Reagan's pro-immigrant policies. And this is very helpful. Land, the head of the Southern Baptist, is a strong supporter of more open immigration. The Catholic Church has long been there. The Mormon Church is the most pro-immigrant church in the country. All the Jewish communities are in the same place. It's very interesting to see the communities of faith begin to speak out and speak to people about the importance. Then you've got the business community, and that's why your leadership in Kansas is so welcome. And I'll tell you how surprising it is in the following sense. 1999, I was in a room with the head of the 12 major trade associations in the United States. Chamber of Commerce, NFIB, restaurants, realtors, trucking, Farm Bureau, and I was there as the taxpayer guy, and we met with the head of the Republican Party, Nicholson. And he went around the room and he said, okay, what's important to you guys? You know, we do these meetings every once in a while. It took an hour. Everybody said, take all the trial lawyers and put them in plastic bags and float them down the river, okay, and cut the capital gains tax. And that was really the two major messages they wanted to share. And I was with them on both. And so we went around and had that conversation. And the head of the party says, you know what? Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And he started to go. And the Chamber of Commerce fellow, Bruce Johnston, said, just like in the Columbo TV show, well, there's this one other thing. The guy's almost out the door. This is one other thing. Well, what is it? Well, I don't know how to bring it up. Well, what is it? Well, we've never worked on this before. What is it? We're running out of workers, and our immigration policies don't allow us to have workers, high-tech, low-tech, that we need. And everybody in that room, from the restaurant people to the truckers, everyone said, yes, actually that's a bigger problem for our industry and the American economy than everything we just spent an hour telling you is our number one priority. How do you have people walk into a room and ignore their number one problem that they have from government, that it gets in the way of hiring new people, that they need to grow the economy, because they just thought this was somebody else's bailiwick? They thought that's some other silo.